All right, Kudos, welcome back to Arsenal Fans Hub. I'm Daniel Watts, and I'm still trying to shake off that Bournemouth lock. And no one else feeling the sting of Saliba's red card in the end of that incredible unbeaten run.
Yeah, definitely a tough one to swallow. But on to the next one, as they say. I'm Jessica, and I'm here to break down a match that felt like a bit of a redemption story. Arsenal versus Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League.
Exactly. This is a must-win after that Bournemouth slip. And it's fascinating to dive into how Arteta approached this one. You know, it's wild to think these two clubs first met in the Champions League way back in 2000. A 3-2 nail-biter that went Arsenal's way.
It's interesting how Arteta switched things up for this match, clearly looking for a different outcome than the weekend. Bringing Martinelli and Jesus in for Sterling and Marino definitely signaled a more aggressive, attack-minded approach. What did you think of that decision?
I think a lot of fans were happy to see Martinelli back. His pace and directness can be a real headache for defenders, and we definitely saw that in the first half. You could almost feel the hunger radiating off the team. They were relentless.
It felt like a direct response to the frustration of that Bournemouth match. There was a real determination to control the game from the outset. And speaking of control, did you see that opening goal from Martinelli? I'm still debating whether it was pure skill or a touch of luck.
Okay, rewind to that moment. Martinelli cuts in from the left, fires a shot that clangs off the near post, and then bam, it ricochets off Riznik's back and into the net. Officially an own goal, but come on, you can't take away from Martinelli's role in creating that chaos.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how putting pressure on your opponent can force those lucky breaks. And remember, Jesus was captaining the team tonight with Odegaard and Saka out. It seemed like he really embraced that leadership role.
Definitely. His energy was infectious, always pressing, linking up play, and driving the team forward. He almost had a goal himself, denied, only by a brilliant save from Riznik. And that's what's so frustrating. They had so many chances to put the game away in that first half.
Let's talk missed opportunities. Calafiori had a couple of decent looks, but couldn't quite find the target. Then there was that moment where Havertz almost got on the end of a Jesus header so close. It felt like a game that should have been comfortably in hand by halftime.
Right. And then things took a turn in the second half.
Yeah.
It seemed like Arsenal eased off the gas a bit and Shakhtar started to find their rhythm.
That shift in momentum was noticeable. Was it complacency on Arsenal's part? Or did Shakhtar simply step up their game? It's probably a bit of both.
No.
And then came that heart-stopping moment, the Trossard penalty miss. What did you make of that?
Going down the middle, not much power.
Yeah.
I think Riznik read it perfectly. A second goal would have given Arsenal so much breathing room, but instead it gave Shakhtar a new lease on life. They could sense a chance to equalize.
And you could see their confidence growing. They started putting Arsenal's defense under real pressure. There was that moment where Pedrinho's shot looked destined for the back of the net, and then David Raya pulls off an absolutely stunning save. Talk about a game-changing moment. That's what you want from your keeper, especially in a tight game like this.
Clutch doesn't even begin to describe it. Raya stepped up when it mattered most. And I think this performance really justified Arteta's decision to start him over Ramsdale.
It's interesting to consider how this match might have played out if Ramsdale had been in goal. But for now, let's delve a bit deeper into the tactics we saw on display. You mentioned earlier that Arsenal's game plan seemed to revolve around utilizing the wide areas, almost stretching Shakhtar's defense to its limits. Can you elaborate on that for our viewers?
Yeah, it was clear from the start that Arteta wanted to use the speed of players like Martinelli and Jesus to exploit the flanks. They were hugging the touchlines, constantly looking to get in behind the defense and deliver dangerous crosses into the box. For those who aren't as familiar with football terminology, hugging the touchlines basically means staying wide and close to the sidelines.
It's a tactic that can be really effective, especially against a team like Shakhtar, who were playing with a 5-man defense. That means they had 3 central defenders and 2 wingbacks. Having more defenders in the central area can make it tough to break through.
It's like trying to crack a walnut with your bare hands.
Yeah.
But Arsenal's strategy was clearly to stretch that defense by forcing those wingbacks to cover more ground. The idea was to create space in the middle for players like Havertz and Trossard to exploit.
Exactly. It's a classic tactic of pulling defenders out of position to create those pockets of space. And it worked to a certain extent, but Shakhtar's defense deserves some credit. They defended deep and compact, which made it difficult for Arsenal to find those clear-cut chances.
Especially early on. Remember those chances for Calafiori? It felt like Arsenal's attacks were just a hair's breadth away from connecting.
Exactly. And this highlights something we've seen from Arsenal at times this season. They create opportunities, but struggle to convert them into goals. It emphasizes the importance of clinical finishing, especially in tight games like this, where one goal can make all the difference.
Let's go back to that Martinelli goal for a second.
Yeah.
Can you break down how that came about from a tactical standpoint?
Sure. It started with a quick transition from defense to attack. Arsenal won the ball back in midfield. From there, it was all about Martinelli's individual brilliance. He cut inside, beat his defender, and unleashed a powerful shot that ultimately led to the goal.
Even though it officially went down as an own goal, it was a classic example of how individual talent can make the difference within a tactical framework. And speaking of tactics, did you notice any significant adjustments that either team made in the second half?
Shakhtar definitely came out with more urgency after the break. They started pressing higher up the pitch, which means they were trying to win the ball back closer to Arsenal's goal. This made it more difficult for Arsenal to build their attacks from the back and force them into some hurried clearances.
They seemed to be targeting Arsenal's midfielders, trying to disrupt their passing rhythm. Did this tactical shift from Shakhtar contribute to Arsenal taking their foot off the gas a bit? Or was it more of a case of Arsenal letting their intensity drop?
It's probably a combination of factors. When a team starts pressing more aggressively, it naturally forces the opposition to play more directly. Arsenal weren't able to control the tempo of the game as well as they did in the first half, and that led to some sloppy passes and turnovers. Plus, let's be honest, sometimes teams just have those mental lapses where the focus drops a bit. It happens even to the best teams.
And then came that crucial penalty miss from Trossard.
There were a couple of moments where it felt like Shakhtar might snatch an equalizer, but then enter David Raya, the hero of the hour.
That save on Pedrinho was simply breathtaking. It was one of those shots that looked destined for the bottom corner, and Raya somehow managed to get a fingertip to it and push it wide. That was the turning point in the second half, don't you think?
Absolutely. That save deflated Shakhtar's momentum and allowed Arsenal to regain some control of the game.
Now let's talk about some of the individual performances. We've already discussed Martinelli and Raya.
Yeah.
But what about Gabriel Jesus? He was wearing the captain's armband tonight. How do you think he handled that responsibility?
I think he led by example. His work rate was incredible. He was always there, always trying to create something. He may not have gotten on the score sheet, but his contribution to the team went far beyond just goals. He was constantly dropping deep to help build attacks, making those intelligent runs in behind the defense, and linking up play with his teammates.
And let's not forget about the midfield battle. Rice and Partey up against Shakhtar's midfield, who came out on top there.
It was an interesting matchup. Rice, as always, was a dominant presence in the middle of the park. He broke up play, won tackles, and distributed the ball intelligently. Partey had a solid game as well, providing that defensive cover in front of the back four. Overall, I think Arsenal had the edge in midfield, especially in the first half.
And what about any other standout performers for either side?
I thought Calafiori had a decent game at left back for Shakhtar, getting forward well and creating a couple of chances. It was unfortunate that he had to come off early with what looked like a knock.
Agreed.
And speaking of valuable contributions, let's not forget about the defensive partnership. They kept Shakhtar's attackers relatively quiet throughout the match.
They were a rock at the back, weren't they? They dealt with everything Shakhtar threw at them. So we've dissected the tactical nuances, highlighted the standout performances. Now let's step back and consider the bigger picture. Where does this win leave Arsenal in their Champions League group?
This win puts them in a commanding position. 2 wins from 2 matches, and they've already beaten one of their main rivals in PSG. Things are looking very positive for them in Europe right now.
But as we all know, the Champions League is a marathon, not a sprint. There's still a long way to go, and they can't afford to get complacent. They need to maintain this level of focus and intensity if they want to progress to the knockout stages.
Absolutely. This win was a positive step, but there are still many challenges ahead.
We've talked tactics, we've talked individual performances, and we've touched on the bigger picture of Arsenal's Champions League journey. But let's get down to brass tacks. Was this match a sign of Arsenal's vulnerability after that Bournemouth setback, or was it just a minor blip on their road to success?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? On the one hand, those missed chances in the first half and Shakhtar's resurgence in the second half do raise some concerns. It makes you wonder if they're still prone to those lapses in concentration, those moments where they take their foot off the gas and let the opposition back into the game.
It's almost like they have these bursts of brilliance, but then struggle to maintain that level of intensity for the full 90 minutes. And that inconsistency can be costly against top-level competition.
Exactly. You need that ruthlessness, that killer instinct to put games away when you have the chance. And against a team like Shakhtar, who clearly weren't afraid to come out swinging in the second half, those missed opportunities could have easily come back to haunt them.
But on the flip side, they did grind out the win even when they weren't at their best.
Yeah.
And that resilience, that ability to dig deep and find a way to win even when things aren't going your way, is a hallmark of any great team.
I completely agree. Sometimes those gritty, hard-fought victories can be even more valuable than dominant performances. They show a team's character, their ability to weather the storm and come out on top. And let's not forget the importance of David Raya's incredible save. That was a game changer, pure and simple.
It's moments like that which can define a season. And speaking of defining moments, how do you think this win sets Arsenal up for their next challenge, a clash against Liverpool?
Talk about a litmus test. Liverpool are always a formidable opponent, and this match will give us a much clearer indication of where Arsenal stand. Can they maintain their composure against a team known for its relentless pressing and attacking flair? Can they convert their chances against a world-class defense?
These are the questions that will be answered on the pitch. But regardless of the outcome, I think this Champions League campaign has been a positive experience so far. They've shown they can compete at the highest level, and they've got a great chance to progress to the knockout stages.
I agree. There's a real sense of belief and purpose within this squad. They're playing with a confidence and swagger that we haven't seen in years. An exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And as always, we want to hear from you, our dedicated Gooners. What were your key takeaways from this match? Did this performance alleviate any concerns from that Bournemouth loss, or are there still some lingering doubts? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.
And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Arsenal Fans Hub for more in-depth analysis and all things Arsenal. Until next time, keep the faith.